This is the Amp Hour podcast, recorded November 12th, 2014, with special guest Mike Harrison from Mike's Electric Stuff, episode number 224. Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And I'm Mike Harrison from Mike's Electric Stuff.
Hey, Mike. We're Chrisless today.
Yeah, he's at Electronica.
He is.
Have you ever been to Electronica?
No, I haven't, but I've heard that you have.
Yeah, I went. It was either 4 or 6 years ago. I can't remember.
Right.
Yeah, it's a bit of an experience. I think you made some comment that it's for a lot. You wonder why companies bother actually exhibiting there because it's so huge.
Yeah.
I think you can understand the big corporate types, but the smaller ones, you just get lost in the the bigness of it all. But yeah, and it's certainly something you want to do once.
Yeah, right.
Nothing else.
Right, so it wasn't worth going back again.
If I had the time, I probably would.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's just a time thing,
that sort of thing. But yeah, it's quite interesting. Or if it's always useful to talk to the people on the stands and hear what sort of bullshit they're pushing sometimes.
Right.
I like the ones where they actually got real engineers on the stand and not salespeople.
Right, yes, of course.
Yeah, you do often actually talk to people that really know what they're doing, and as soon as they realise that you know what you're doing, then you can get some quite interesting conversations.
Exactly. No, but so how much time and money does it cost you to hop across the pond there over to Germany?
But there's someone I know that actually lives in Munich, so I got free accommodation. It was just a
nice.
flight. But a lot of it depends on how early you book. But you probably get change out £100 for the flight, even if you book relatively late.
Okay.
It's not that far,
right?
For me, so
it's only like an hour's flight, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, something like that. It's not that far.
Geez, that's like
going
to Melbourne.
The show itself was, I'd say it's not unlike most shows, just apart from scale. The only thing, there's these specialist halls. Although normally, each hall has got some sort of specialisation, you quite often find just random stands that are either late bookings or whatever that look like they're in the completely wrong hall,
right.
which can be good because you can stumble across interesting stuff you didn't know you're interested in. But the one that was a real experience was a whole hall of Chinese suppliers.
Oh.
And that was just so annoying. Literally, my normal tactic at shows is you walk down, fairly briskly, purposefully, looking, glancing to see if it looks like it must be, there's anything interesting, and then walking past.
That's
right. Or if you want to really, really annoy the stallholders, you glance for just long enough, you just catch in the corner of your eye that they're turning towards you, then you walk off.
Yeah.
But the Chinese thing, you have no chance. They're like sort of, accosting
vultures
you in the aisles, handing you business cards and.
Wow.
And you walk around their stand. Literally, the one stand I was walking around, they had a load of connectors and stuff. And literally, there's this Chinese sort of girl literally walking one pace behind me with a notepad, just waiting for my, every word. It was just so annoying.
My
chill
goodness.
out, guys.
You don't get that from the Western suppliers, do you? They're all sort of laid back.
Something may have been that, obviously it's obviously cost them a lot to be there, so they put under a lot of pressure from their bosses to get the sales and whatever. But they just don't understand that, people just don't like that sort of hard sell thing.
Whereas all your big companies, it's a junket, right? Woohoo! We're going to the trade show. It's boring as batshit to man the stand all day. Trust me.
I've done it. Not at a trade show, but computer shows, I've done it.
Yep. Yeah, it's not fun, and but still, it's a junket, right? It's better than working, right? So, especially working for the man, and it's and so that's it. So you don't think it's good value either for like a small firm to attend such a huge show?
Obviously, I'm not a marketing person. I don't. If you've got some really new, amazing product that really benefits from people seeing firsthand, then maybe. But I think just the problem is the sheer scale of it.
Yep.
And I think most product areas there are probably slightly more specialist focused. Shows.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the sheer size of it. You can easily miss out a complete hall if you're not particularly well organised.
A complete hall. Whereas the show we've got here is like half a hall. So like if you miss an aisle, you're pretty dumb. Let alone a whole hall.
Unfortunately, I'm a bit OCD about these things. If I go to something like this, I just have to have literally gone past every single. I have to have seen everything, even if it's glancing
even if
past
it's just walking past and glancing. Yeah,
absolutely. Because
exactly.
I thought I might have missed something.
Right.
So that it took me 2 pretty much full days, and I think I did see pretty much everything. I think there were 1 or 2 really specialist, like there's some really specialist bits that I didn't bother going to because they didn't. I mean, some specialist stuff I like because it's quite interesting to see other fields and so on. But some things like hybrids and no, I'm not really interested. It's like in the UK, there's a big exhibition centre in Birmingham, and quite often they have other shows on. So I went to an electronic show a few years ago, and right next door there was a show that did all the stuff for food packaging.
Oh, okay. All of like the handling systems and all that sort of jazz.
And the factory automation stuff, and I found some really interesting sensors there, so that was worth it. But
nice.
I'm always sort of interested in how other industries do stuff.
Yep.
It's just seeing the other world. Also, like reading other industries' trade magazines. You get some all sorts of just the level of detail that you just don't even think exists.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, I'd love to get there, but it's just it's Germany. It's a bit probably as far as I could possibly travel on this planet.
Yeah. Right? It's almost like you drill a hole and you probably end up pretty close there.
And drill a hole through the planet, and you pop out in Germany. Not quite, but I'm sure it's not far off. Anyway, for those who don't know, wondering who this Mike guy is, I'm sure there's very few, but we didn't really introduce you. You're Mike Harrison from Mike's Electric Stuff, and you're a fellow video blogger?
Occasional video blogger.
Occasional video blogger.
Moaning that I don't do enough stuff, but I think they haven't got it. I just do it occasionally for fun. When I've got something to talk about, I don't sort of feel I have to do something every day or whatever.
That's I wish I could do. I wish I could do that. I'm a bit more obligated than you to keep up the videos. And lack of pressure, yes.
Things like real work tends to get in the way.
Right, but you must work flat out on those art installation projects you get, because you must get pushed for deadlines and budgets and.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the big stuff less so, but it's the small stuff. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I did a job. It was that customer, they were making a pinball machine with it was like a corporate branded thing with their own gameplay and so on. So they had problems with their solenoid control board. So actually. They needed like a new board to control the solenoid. So literally, from being asked to do it to delivering 2 finished boards was about 24 hours. No, it's a little bit more than that. It was maybe 2 days, including so it's PCB layout, getting the boards done, assembling them, and driving them down the road to them. So it doesn't happen often, but it does happen sometimes.
Wow, you mustn't have got any sleep at all. So you had to. Did you have to design the circuit as well?
It was a pretty simple circuit. It was just a bunch of HC595s and some MOSFETs.
Right. But still, you got to do that. You got to lay out the board. And in that case, would you bother doing a schematic in the CAD package?
Are you kidding?
No, exactly. DRC rules? Who can net list? Who gives a crap,
DRC is fine. No, but I mean, basically, if you're really cramped on a time scale, there are things that you absolutely need. You need a board layout. You need components. Yes. You don't actually need a schematic.
No, that's right.
Actually, that can be squashed out of the critical path. So pretty much almost always. But also, if you're doing stuff, we talked about this briefly last time. But if you're doing say a huge LED array with some weird ass. Matrixing and multiplexing. There's no way you can just start with a schematic and dump that as an S list. You've got to start from the layout. And figure out which LEDs need to go to which drivers, because that's how the PCB layout works.
Yep, exactly.
And you might document it later if you can be bothered. But as these are quite often one-off jobs, that does sometimes not happen at all.
Bugger. So did they even demand any documentation?
Oh no! They just needed this thing to work. I mean, that's all. Yep. That's all they cared about. They needed this thing that would do the job. So that's the channel numbers are on the silk screen. What more do they want?
Right. Oh, geez, you went to the effort to put the channel numbers on the silk screen. I would have just done a single-sided board, permanent marker, just...
Yeah.
But, that's great.
No, but I'd say things like just LEDs and micro, almost everything these days. I've yet to see any good solution to entering a schematic in a way that says this bunch of pins can go to this bunch of nodes, but I'm going to figure out which ones later.
Right.
I'd say what I tend to do is, I'll throw all the footprints down, I'll do the rubber band, so I've got the layout with all the net list and all the net names on it in PCB form. The bill of materials, again, the component type and component value are in the PCB data. Right. So my bill of materials is taken care of, so that when I do this, the typical anatomy of a quick timescale job is, I'll do the board layout, I'll then export the BOM from that board layout to produce my shopping list, and so all the parts, all the PCBs, all the stencil, and then 2 days later be assembling on my pick and place. So I've also got a very streamlined process to go from my PCB to the pick and place. I've got all the common parts, all the libraries to match that. So, for example, if it's a part I've used before, I know that, for example, that diode is going to be the right way around. Because I know that my library matches the orientation in the feeders.
And you've made it before, you've assembled it.
Exactly,
and Yep. Got it.
So, literally, that whole process could be extremely quick. That's one of the reasons for getting my own pick and place, because if you've got to deal with a subcontractor, you've got so much documentation to do. It's a real pain.
Right. Have you ever fed the pick and place incorrectly and goofed up and put down 10Ks instead of 1Ks or something like that?
Not to any significant quantity.
Right.
That's the worst case. I'll take, if it's a moderately complicated thing, I'll do the first panel and test at least one board off that panel before I run all the other panels.
Got it.
But most of my stuff, it's not, it's unusual for there to be more than, say, 5 resistor values in a design. Partly because I'm really anal about trying to reduce the number of component values, because it's pain in the bum, like loading all the feeders. And most of my stuff is digital, so it's it's either 100 ohms or it's 1K or 10K or 100K.
Got it. And you can get those round values. Yep.
And the only time that I usually need another value is for a reference resistor on a switch mode power supply. Right. In which case, say if I need a 1K and a 13K, then I pull up to 13Ks.
Exactly. And then you wouldn't bother loading the pick and place if you just need that one resistor, right? You might just hand solder that on later.
Yeah,
perhaps.
And if it's a few pounds, anything. Things which are literally there's one per board on a panel, then resistors I probably would load because they're a pain. But certainly anything that's a weird shape that I'd have to spend time tweaking the vision for would almost certainly get hand placed. Got it. It's just quicker to do.
And what is your go-to size package?
0805 if there are no other constraints. Otherwise 0603. I might pick and place will do 0603 reasonably well.
Okay.
It'll do 0805 no problem till the cows come home. But if there's no size constraints, then probably 0805.
Absolutely.
1206 if it needs to dissipate a little bit of power, but that's it really.
Got it. Now for this 24-hour turn board or 48-hour turn project, did you hand assemble that? You wouldn't have bothered picking place.
I hand assembled that purely because it was only 2 boards. I just couldn't be bothered setting up the thing. One thing I did get a while ago, which I only basically it was one of these things I bought for one job with the intention of using it for another, was a vinyl cutter. Which I originally bought for cutting, because I had a job where I had a really weird PCB outline. It was basically fitting a retrofit board into an existing thing. Yep. So it was near Christmas, so I thought it's about time I bought myself a present. So I bought the vinyl cutter with the long-term intent so I can cut mylar stencils. But the short-term thing was cutting these weird board outlines, which it worked very well. And literally, I hadn't got round to even looking at the process for cutting the outlines until this job came along. So I thought, I'll give it a try, because it was one of those marginal things. I could have done it by just dispensing.
So what you're talking about cutting an actual board?
No, just a stencil.
Oh, just a stencil
for the solder paste,
Okay.
And the first board of this I actually did in my etch tank, because originally it was just one board, then they decided they want to cut the others for spares. So in fact, that job, come think of it, that was actually a 24-hour job, because I did the PCB here in the tank.
Got it.
But the stencil cutter, I'll give it a try, and it actually... all I did was literally export a DXF from my PCB software, feed it into the software that came with the vinyl cutter, and it actually did a pretty good job without any tweaking, which I was quite surprised at.
And there's no scale in it all? It all just works?
Well, no, I'd previously sorted that out. That was. It's things like, it was cutting, like, there are SO16 pads with the smallest pads on there, but things like, getting the right amount of overcut so it actually cuts the piece out, and then picking all the bits out with sticky tape to pick all the bits out. It's not the sort of thing I do routinely, but it's handy to have that ability so that I can now, if I really need to, completely in-house do stencils and PCBs and pick and place.
Nice. You can. Awesome. So how much is one of these vinyl cutting machines?
It was about 200 and something. It's a Silhouette Cameo. Which
Silhouette Cameo.
I read someone I think has done a Python script to do stuff out of Eagle on it. But basically, it's like an XY plotter with a blade. It's got a blade with a little, a very good quality bearing on it, so that it really drags the blade across, and the blade rotates as it changes direction. But it works surprisingly well considering how simple the mechanics are. The other sort of handy toy that I got recently, quite a long time ago, I bought a laser cutter, one of the really cheap Chinese ones. It was really one case of
they're garbage, aren't they?
Yeah, let's buy the cheapest one I can find, just purely to see how crappy it is. Now, I mean, the laser side of it was fine. The problem was that they were using this really crappy motor controller, PC parallel port running on two Atmel 8051. No. It was just horrific. It would just, you'd get halfway through the job and then just stop and set fire to the piece with leaving the laser on. And also it took a lot of space up, so I eventually sort of flogged that. But I got a little CNC. It's like a CNC engraver type thing there. There's two really common ones on eBay. There's a 3020 and a 3040, which are the 3040. It's about an A3 size bed. It's designed really as an engraver, so the vertical travel's only about 50 millimeters. Yep. But for things like cutting PCB outlines, it is brilliant. It works really well. I've also been using it for cutting out little acrylic cases. I don't know if you saw my smallest thermal imager video.
Oh, yes, yep.
I did that case, just that cut out of acrylic. So that's actually been one of those sort of toys that... And just simple things like making up, I had to do a test tube where all I wanted was like 20 holes at an exact pitch. Which, doing that manually is a real, it's almost impossible to do that accurately. Yeah. But this literally, just, a few minutes and done. And obviously I can use it for things like cutting front panels and so on. So that was definitely worthwhile, certainly much more than laser cutter. And of course, the other difference between that and laser cutter is you've got a much wider choice of materials. Laser cutter, there's only a really small handful of materials that you can cut without gassing yourself, if nothing else.
I was going to say, you have to have like a ventilation thing for these things, don't you?
Yeah.
Right, so you can't put them in like an office environment like I'm in here.
Easily,
Yep.
I had like a bit of dryer duct I hung out the window, but it's still quite, cutting acrylic, it does get a bit, you start getting headaches.
Yeah, you would sort of turn on and leave,
But, for me, it's much more useful to be able to mill out a PCB outline than laser cut in one dimension, in 2D on acrylic. So that was a definitely recommended thing.
Yeah. Any other? So, do you have a 3D printer? That would almost complete the set.
I mean, the thing about 3D printers is 3D prints always look crap. I've never... apart from the expensive industrial stereolithography ones. I mean, it really annoys me. You see these projects on Hackaday where they've just made what is basically a project box. 3D printed. It looks terrible. Where, for £3 from Hammond, you could get one that looks much nicer.
Exactly.
So the thing about the CNC is that it'll cut, you've got the nice factory finish of a sheet of acrylic, for example. And you can cut, PCB, in particular PCB, both PCB outlines and things like test jigs and so on. To be able to just drill that is really. I did try doing automatic drilling on that controller board that I did. The problem is that because I printed the artwork on the laser printer, the accuracy isn't quite as good as the CNC accuracy. So it started drilling holes not quite in the right place. So I abandoned that and hand drilled it.
Got it.
So it would be nice to get that happening.
What is your method for making your own boards? Do you use the overhead transparency on the laser printer, positive photoresist?
I use tracing paper in a laser printer that works really well because you get really good... The problem with transparency film is you don't tend to get really good solid black because it's too shiny.
No, that's right, yep.
But the tracing paper, I've used drafting film in the past, but that tends to crinkle a bit too much.
Yep.
But the optimum thing I found, this years and years ago, I spent ages trying all sorts of materials, and thick tracing paper, 90 GSM or above, because the thinner stuff crinkles too much through the fuser. It's dirt cheap, it's got good stability, and it just works. It's brilliant. And then just staple it together into an envelope to do double-sided. And I don't do nearly as many homebrew PCBs as I used to, mainly because most of my jobs I can afford to do a fast turnaround from my
send it
local
out.
friendly PCB guy.
But for example, that 48-hour one, you had to. There was no choice.
Yeah. And so my local place, literally, if it's really desperate, I can get them artwork before about 11 in the morning, and they'll ship out the same day. And they're close enough. I can drive up there in an hour and pick them up if I need to.
So how much does that service cost?
Not as much as you'd think. They're actually surprisingly cheap, and their tooling costs are quite low. So to get, let's say, one Euro card done in 24 hours would be, it wouldn't be more than 150 quid all in.
Right, which is, that's quid. So, but hey, when you're charging a client, that's fine. You wouldn't do it for your own hobby project, of course.
I mean, basically, this place, it's got to the point where I hardly ever even bother asking for a quote. I just bung it to them saying I need this many in this days, and I know it's going to come out reasonable. And also, I've passed them on to a few of my clients, so quite often what I'll say is, okay, here's the artwork, send it to me, invoice it to whoever, the customer is. Just saves me dealing with the paperwork.
Yep.
Which makes my life a bit easier.
So you're pretty much fully set up then for doing, but this is your business, right? Is being able to turn projects these sort of, lowish volume custom projects.
Yes, and also doing the hardware and the software, and just they just need a solution. So, and it's in a market that I understand and I'm enthusiastic about, and everyone knows everyone else. So I have got a reputation as being the go-to guy. Got it. Yep. Doing funky.
Do you end up with more work than you can handle, or?
It generally tends to work out. I mean, what tends to happen is if I've not got much on, I tend to just slow down a bit and don't get as much done as I would otherwise.
Drag it out. Yeah,
but no, it seems to, by accident rather than planning, really seems to just. Quite often I'll just bat something away and say, just no, I can't. Fingers in the ears, la la la, I'm not listening, sort of thing. And
do you have it? Sorry, go.
One issue is that the projects that do have a sensible time scale, by the time you've got all the other stuff out of the way and they've made up their mind, they then become urgent as well. By the time you actually get into them.
Do you have any clients that you're going, oh, they were such a pain in the ass, I'm never working with them again?
Not really. I tend to filter those out. I can now generally filter those out before they become clients.
Got it.
They give you what is clearly, they haven't
a crazy requirement.
I just sort of
they haven't thought it through. They've got no clue.
I usually get involved at an early enough stage to point them in the right direction, saying, no, you're not going to. Plaster that power supply into a wall so it can never be accessed again, and all this sort of stuff.
It's not. Once you've got that engineering intuition, it's not hard to know when a project is going to be viable or not. Which is a perfect segue into, after 2 years, the saga is finally finished, and, we think so anyway, what you and I both called the Mew thermal imager. They finally ran out of money, apparently. Well, duh.
That was just... that was weird. I've met, even from the video, I've met people like that, and they just, I don't understand them. They seem to think that they can just, get the right people in and make something happen, despite the fact they don't have a clue what they're actually doing. Yeah. And, I just recognised almost immediately when I saw that first video, the guy saying, just the way he was talking about it, it just, bullshit alert. This is never ever going to happen.
The vibe just comes through. Same here. I got the same vibe, and it's just went, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're not going to be able to pull this off. And
I'm just amazed that they strung it along for that long, to be honest. I really am.
I know. It's incredible. I thought, this will last 6 or 9 months and they'll run out of money or it'll all go tits up and they'll vanish. But no, it dragged out for 2 years, apparently. They haven't admitted it yet, by the way, for those who've been following this saga.
Seek Thermal has to be the last nail in that coffin.
Oh, totally. Totally. They just... but even if Seek didn't come along, they still had no chance. I think it was
They just went so long for just not showing anything. That was the thing.
Yeah, it's not. You just can't. You can't do that. You can't run a project like that. No.
No.
Yeah,
it would be interesting to actually hear some inside story from that, but
it would
I'm sure
be
a few things might leak out at some point.
Right, and show their real prototypes of when they actually started on it. Because you and I both knew that they didn't have jack, right?
Yeah.
At the start.
Yeah, I have a suspicion that maybe that they were talking to a sensor manufacturer who maybe believed some of the bullshit. And
right.
Of course. Believing they're going to ship however many 100,000 or whatever.
Oh, because that's possible. Because you can just show them your Kickstarter campaign and, hey, look at all the hype surrounding this, And I can picture a sensor manufacturer actually talking to them and being rather excited. But they're but often they're not going to have the engineering and systems intuition to know that they don't have the chops to pull it off.
If you're making thermal imaging sensors, you ought to know whether a potential client knows what they're talking about. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I guess, but
especially if you're not one of the big boys. If you're one of the small, I'm sure apart from FLIR,
right, yes.
If you discount FLIR and all the companies that FLIR have bought, there can't really be that many left. Really. No.
Well, whose sensor do you think is in there?
Do you have any clue? I'm not sure there is. I really don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about that market because it's not the sort of thing you see in DigiKey.
Right.
So I really don't know. Pass.
Right. Okay.
If any, the fact they said it's a they claimed it was a readily available sensor, and then they changed to another one.
Yeah,
well,
I know.
So.
And that was there were so many. How many red flags? I lost count. I lost the number of fingers on my hand at the red flags in that project. I mean, just things that just didn't make sense. It was one of the most bizarre projects I've ever followed, really. Anyway.
Well, I think it's one of those ones that, a lot of the potential customers wanted it to be true. It's a bit like, sort of psychic, people want it so much they're blinded to blinded to all the bullshit.
That's a similar thing. It's not that this project's bullshit. This project's awesome. Is the $300 pick and place machine on the on the Hackaday prize, right?
I think the problem
got the most votes because everyone wanted a $300 pick and place machine.
And most of them are wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Tell us why they're wrong.
Yeah, well, until you've used a pick and place machine, you don't. There are so many literally just things like how long it takes to load the feeders, how long it takes to set up. People think, okay, I'm really bored with hand assembling these two boards. I want a machine to do it, but they don't think through all the implications of what it takes to do. Even if you have the best designed, most perfect, amazing pick and place in the universe, you've still got to load parts into feeders. You've still got to export the data from your PCB software. You've still got to set stuff up. So
and you've got to stand there while it's doing it because if there's a mistake, you can't just come back 5 hours later and go, oh, it's stuffed up 10 minutes into it. And stopped.
Again, even details like, just for example, what my machine will do is if it gets like 3 mispicks in a row that say fail vision, it'll say, okay, well then just carry on with the next part and just do all the stuff it can. And then at the end say, hey, go and sort this out, which is, it's an obvious thing once you realise it. So I think, apparently from what I gather, the guys behind this have actually used some real pick and place machines.
Oh no, totally. No, it's quite a professional thing they're doing. It's just, the public, I don't think, understands how viable a $300 pick and place machine is.
Yeah, but it's also I don't. Looking at their I don't think their mechanics are up to the job. Using that.
Yeah, I know. Using that delta arrangement.
I just can't see how you can get the precision because one of my sort of thoughts that if you could figure out a way of measuring the position of a head in 3 dimensions really, really accurately, you could use cheap mechanics and do a closed loop. But the problem is with pick and place is you can't vision the board because it's covered in solder paste. So unless you can come up with some really neat, some sort of laser interferometry sensor or something, basically some way of moving all the difficulty into software instead of expensive mechanics. Now, if you can do that, then that's Yeah, I don't know if it's possible. It almost certainly, yeah, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It probably needs a lot of work. It probably needs somebody who doesn't know that it's impossible to try and actually do it. You know what I mean?
Something that springs to mind is Jerry's cast AR thing. She's claiming like 0.1 millimeters resolution with the IR tracking and all that sort of jazz. You know, like something novel out of the box like that.
Yeah,
you know, but still, it's Is it going to have the linear? Is it going to have the linear accuracy over, you know, a 300 millimeter build area? You know,
well, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's non-linear as long as it's predictable. And you can compensate
exactly, because you can compensate in software. That's right.
In some respects, it's easier than a CNC because it's not carrying any load.
True.
So you've got a really light pickup. All it has to do is pick the component, rotate it, and drop it down. But it has to do it really accurately. But also, it has to be reasonably quick. I mean, a pick and place that does 100 components an hour is a waste of time. It's completely useless.
Totally. Yep.
You know, it has to be at least as quick as doing it manually. Otherwise, it's just pointless.
There's no point.
If nothing else, your solder paste is going to dry out. You know?
Yeah, that's right.
But I mean, the other thing is that, you know, I've yet to see a good solution. It is not a pick and place until you've got tape feeders. You have to have tape feeders.
Yes, totally.
And, you know, I don't think that's a fundamentally difficult problem. The problem is that a lot of people haven't realised that that's what the problem is.
Yes.
You know, moving an XY head, you know, even, for example, that CNC machine I've got, you could probably almost modify that to do it. Okay, it'd be a bit slow. But without feeders, it's a toy.
Yeah,
you know, you have to be able to stick a rig, you know. You don't...
Yep.
You can't be having to stick a strip of... Okay, you know, you don't need necessarily everything to be in feeders, but for all the jelly bean stuff, you need to be able to just have it spit components out virtually forever rather than have to reload the things every, you know, sort of 100 components.
And people don't realise that you become a slave to that machine. Like, you know, like even at the professional pick and place houses, right? The professional assemblers, they stand there all they're doing is constantly massaging these machines, making sure that, you know, everything's
Well, they shouldn't be. If they're doing it right, they shouldn't be. Once it gets, you know, they should literally be able to press the button and let it go and it'll flash a light. You know, if it has a real problem. But
if you're doing a reasonable run of boards, you're always changing parts, you know, especially like if you're using tubes or something like that, you know, you can only fit, you know.
And that's where it probably becomes difficult actually sizing, you know, if it's really well set up, one guy can probably run 3 or 4 machines. If the process has been really super set up, but you know, it's a case of having you probably need to be running fairly high volumes to do that, because otherwise you've got so much setup time to deal with. Either running large volumes or running, you know, say a job that, say, you know, every Monday you run 100 of one particular job, or, you know, some regular schedule, so it's all predictable. You can plan it all, and so like one job, like one customer's got his own bank of feeders that, you know, his bank of feeders goes onto the machine, they press the button and that job comes out the other end.
Got it.
But if you're doing small runs of stuff, there's so much setup involved. So the thing about $300 pick and place, you know, okay, as long as I can spend another $2,000 to add feeders and add all the stuff to make it a real machine, fine.
Exactly.
You know, if $300 is your entry cost for a machine that can be made usable, great. But, you know, if it's $300 for a toy, you know,
a useless toy that can't be expanded. Yeah,
it's a very difficult market section because, you know, below a certain amount it's a toy, above a certain amount it's, you know, your market has really disappeared, but also your actual target market for your own pick and place machine. You know, because, you know, why not ship it out to a subcontractor? Your market is, you know, that band between stuff that isn't worth or is too much hassle or is too urgent to subcontract, and is big enough to not just hand assemble it. So you're starting off with a fairly thin band in the market.
And that's never going to change, is it? I can't see that ever changing, that sort of band. It might move a bit, but...
It will change if you can move the entry cost to a usable machine. I think $300 is too cheap. Say $1,000 I think is maybe a bit more of a...
Totally. If there was $1,000 one, I would buy one. Right, just for kicks, right?
Because I think at that price, I think you could make something which is useful, and it's the sort of price level where, you know, a few setup charges to a subcontractor will probably cover it. And I think that Chinese one that's about 6,000 or 3,000.
What's your opinion on that?
My main issue with it is it doesn't have vision. You know, I hear surprisingly good things about it, considering how crude it is. If they get vision on, because the thing is, vision these days it costs peanuts.
Yeah,
you know,
I know.
And in terms of the complexity of the problem, as vision problems go, you've got a fixed position, a very finite number of different things you need to look at, complete control over the lighting and background. And all you need to know is rotation and dimensions in basically 2D. So in terms of vision, it is not. I'm sure you could do it with something like OpenCV, without any problem at all.
Totally. I think there's probably a niche market there for somebody to develop a vision add-on for that machine, because the base machine's there, and apparently it is, by most reports, it is quite, actually usable.
I've heard that they are talking about adding Vision too. I think at the moment it's got some sort of Windows CE or something platform in there. But again, the problem is, because it's a limited market, it's a big investment in time and effort to do that. And
of
how
course,
many are you going to sell?
Yep.
Exactly.
You might sell 1,000 if you're lucky.
Yeah, and if it's open source, well, who's going to make money on it? And would you trust, reels of expensive components to a software that's been coupled together?
Exactly.
Open source doesn't exactly have a glowing reputation for reliable, dependable, usable software.
Well, exactly. Just my microcurrent alone uses a reel that costs $6,000, right? A reel of resistors, a reel of precision resistors. Am I going to trust that to anyone but a professional assembler?
No.
Not really, right?
Yeah. Well, I get some of my lead jobs. You're putting down. Well, the current one, I've been doing a few little demonstration units for a lead manufacturer. I'll talk about in a minute. And one of those, it's a 32 by 32 array, so that's 1,024 LEDs on each board. So if you then panel, I was thinking of panelising that maybe 4-up panel, that's still 4,000 LEDs.
Yeah.
Even if they're only 3p each, if you drop that or stick your finger in the solder paste or something, it's a lot. It's a big risk.
Exactly. So you're just doing it in-house. Yeah, I think we're both in agreement there. There's very limited scope for an in-house pick and place. Yeah. You're probably the ideal case where an in-house pick and place is actually viable. With your standalone contract design business, Yeah.
I suppose, for some prototypes, certain types of prototyping on moderately complex things, maybe, or if you do lots of variants and so on. Actually, one of the reasons I got that is one of the projects I was involved in a while ago was looking at a design where it had something like 100 boards, which were all going to be populated differently. To basically produce, say, like graphic outlines on PCB, which we spent a lot of time figuring out exactly how we could actually do it. But unfortunately, the project never actually happened, which is a shame. But it was for that sort of thing.
Did you get paid for that, or is it one of those?
I got paid for doing some demo boards. We did some handmade prototypes and so on. And, I got paid enough to do those. But I'm the sort of person that I just have to think in background. It's a difficult problem. I just have to solve that problem if only in my own head for my satisfaction that I've figured out how to do it. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But that's just me,
So, just as an aside, there, when you're doing jobs like that, do you give like a new customer like a few hours freebie design evaluation, or
it varies a little bit. What generally happens is that we agree on a rough spec, and I figure out a price to get to a certain point on that spec. It's
right.
I almost certainly don't charge,
you would spend like half a day on it for free or something like that.
Something like that. It depends a lot, and also on if it's an existing customer, I've usually got a pretty good idea of the likelihood of something happening. And in some cases, we'll actually develop something that's a bit speculative, and if it doesn't get used on this job, it will get used on a different one at some point. And that's happened a few times as well. We've got this hardware pretty much developed, so let's pitch it to another client. And
exactly.
It's one of those markets that's not really spec driven. It's that's a cool thing. What can we, what art can we put on it?
That's right. So how much of your business is that art installation stuff these days? Most of it?
Pretty much all of it.
All of it. Okay.
But that's partly my choice, purely because since I've been doing that sort of stuff, I find the industrial type stuff just so boring. But also the time scale in that it tends to work on a much like anything. I'm pretty much nowadays turn down anything which is for production, because it's in terms of just timing. You do the prototype, then you don't hear anything back for 3 months. Then you've got to do all the production stuff, and then in which time I've done like 10 other jobs in the meantime, and I've forgotten about all the other stuff.
I know. Yes, I've been designing production test systems for like a decade or more, and it's not fun. People just take our word for it. Don't don't go there. It's not a glamorous industry.
Yeah,
it's
most
not
of the
fun.
jobs I do now, it's literally design it, maybe prototype, build it, and that's it.
And that's it.
That's it delivered.
Wash hands. Yep.
But there's other aspects on it. It quite often means that you have to push the button on a production run of a few hundred boards, and there's no chance to get that wrong. Okay, if it's a few hundred, I will generally insist on doing a prototype, even if it's something that I'm quite comfortable with. Because there's always things, you stick like 1,000 heads on a board and it's pulling like 10 amps. There's always risks of things that you didn't quite expect happening.
Exactly.
Okay, well, exactly how many capacitors do we need to put on this board to stop it crapping the data out, that sort of thing.
And while you can modify and hack the board, if you goof up the PCB, you don't want to do it on 100 boards,
Absolutely,
right?
No.
Like, if it's 10, okay, it's not too bad, but 100?
Yeah, I actually had a customer who was wanting to do, I think it was about 3,000 or 4,000. It was a fairly simple thing. It was basically
but still, that's big volume.
Yeah, it was something like a badge that would light up on when it got a radio signal. And they wanted to turn this around in like 2 weeks flat. And I just said, look, if you're building 2,000 of anything, you cannot do it without a prototype. Because, if you're building like 20 or 30 or 100 boards, they need a few tweaks. Well, then, someone's got to work
it's okay. You can sit down for a day or two. And
you are screwed. There is no way out of that.
You would have to hire a subcontractor to do the mods for you.
It wouldn't be doable. You'd be talking about probably delivering like 2 or 3 days before the thing had to be shipped out to the end customer. So it wouldn't be hard. It would just not be possible to do at all. So I just said, look, just don't forget it.
So tell us about this this new LED project with a couple of 1,000 LEDs per board. LEDs a board.
Basically, this came about in a slightly odd way. I was looking through Mouser trying to find a few things to make up the free order, the free shipping amount, as you do occasionally. And I found some 0402 white LEDs, which were actually quite cheap.
Hang on, do you get free shipping on Mouser?
If you order more than £50, yes, and DigiKey.
Oh, okay. I don't think I get. No, mine's always $30 shipping. Always. So
I think basically it was DigiKey styles, and I think Mouser have followed.
Oh, okay.
It's really odd because things like power supplies, I can actually buy a power supply from Mouser slightly cheaper than I can buy it from the UK rep from the same company and get free shipping. So I think somebody must be losing something along the line there. I don't quite know.
So what percentage of your stuff do you buy from DigiKey and Mouser as opposed to RS in the UK and Farnell's?
My first stop is for odds and ends rather than production. My order is usually Farnell, maybe RS if I can find the thing on their damn website. Then Mouser, then DigiKey, because Mouser are quite often cheaper. And for production stuff, anything that's more than like pennies, I'll look at all four to see who's the cheapest. For stuff where it matters. I tend to, if I have to go to DigiKey anyway, I'll tend to do all the order with DigiKey because, again, it's only out of principle because I'm so annoyed that Farnell, and there are so many little details on their website that they could so easily improve, and I've told them so many times. I know. They're not interested in, so I'll almost on principle buy elsewhere just because I don't want to give them the business. But for prototyping, I couldn't live without Farnell for prototyping.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, because literally, if I'm doing a stupidly urgent order, if I place an order today, I know Farnell will come tomorrow, DigiKey will come the day after tomorrow.
Do they? They used to have they still do. They have a same day service here. Farnell's. And I think RS might do too. Like if you order before 10 a.m, you can pay a bit extra and have it delivered same day.
I don't think they've got that as a standard service. I'm sure if you ring them up and they're quite along, they're like halfway down along the country. But I'm sure if it was super urgent, they would hire a local bike courier, and it would probably cost you a couple of £100 or something to do.
Oh, okay,
quite a long
right.
Way. They're
they're a long way.
It would be like a good 2.5 hour drive at least. Where I'm to Farnell,
so you don't have the luxury of having anyone that you can just go pick stuff up from a trade counter?
No, I mean, RS have a trade counter, but they don't really do any electronic bits. If you want a load of spade connectors or a roller cable, then fine. But if you want a resistor, forget it.
Exactly.
And the bastards have even stopped opening on Saturdays, because what you can do is you can place an order and pick it up the next day from the trade counter. So when the trade counter was opening on Saturdays, that was sometimes an option, but they don't even open on Saturday anymore, which is really annoying. away because they're about 15 minutes away from me. But yeah, that would be nice. But
yeah, well, here they're about 20 minutes drive or something, and I can and you can just turn up and go, I would like this part, please. You don't have to pre-order, and you can just sit there and wait.
Do they carry a decent amount of stock locally?
It's getting worse and worse every year, but it's for your basic stuff. Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's
Well, the basic stuff I tend to have in stock anyway for the sort of quantities I need for prototyping. I've either got or I can improvise, or I can pull one off of a board. Yep. So, but I've got some of my component stock's been going for probably 30 plus years, so I've accumulated. But also because it's only me, pretty much anything I'll know if I'm likely to have it or not without even looking.
Right.
But also I'll know exactly where to look if it's something I've used in a project. Generally, I'm quite good at filtering the leftovers out of the project box into general stock as soon as the project's finished.
Got it. And we were talking before the show about how you got a huge score of components. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, basically this was a fairly small subcontract assembler up in Cambridge. They went out of business, and they did it wasn't an auction, it was a sale by tender because they didn't have enough space to get it in for an auction.
How did you find out about them?
I think it might have been advertised in some of the electronics press, and I'm on a few mailing lists for a few. I used to go to loads of auctions years and years ago, pretty much before eBay. I used to go to quite a lot of factory closure auctions. Sometimes I just wanted to have a look around the factory, even though I wasn't going to buy anything. It was quite interesting to actually look around these factories. But also, quite often you find that a lot of the bargains are like in the weeds, like this box of assorted stuff that they haven't bothered lotting, or in some cases in the dumpsters outside. They've gone around. The auctioneer, they go in, they clear all the crap off and shovel stuff they don't think is worth anything into a big pile. And you quite often, I picked that tender sale on the viewing day. They had a big skip out. In the UK, we call them skips, not dumpsters, by the way, for you non-UK people. But they had a big skip outside, and I went on the viewing day and had a look round and made notes and stuff. And there was, I picked up about 2 or 3 dozen, plastic bin bins and loads of odd bits and pieces and components and so on. I asked them, I said, is it okay if I have a look around the bit of skip? They said, yeah, no problem. I'm saving them money. I'm creating space in their skip. Of course. And so this was a tender sale where you just put your written bids in, and then they come back later and tell you whether you won or not. And a lot of the lots were all their stores were like big rows of steel racking. So one lot would be like this bay of like 5 shelves, everything on that bay of 5 shelves.
Oh, right, yes.
Or everything in this box of assorted stuff and so on. So a lot of it was components. There was quite a lot of tools and like crimp tools. I got a load of crimp tools and stuff. And a lot of the big stuff goes for serious money. Some of the stuff goes for ridiculous money. Those auctions, I never quite figured out why.
Yeah, I know some of them.
But the bargains are often in the weeds. But this one worked out really well because there were quite a few like bays of components. I bid almost 20 quid on the basis someone might not even bid anything. So so it ends up I got the call from them. So I won I think it was about 3,000 quid's worth of stuff.
Okay. Yep.
And some of it was like relatively expensive single boxes, and others literally bays of components and stuff.
But you knew that you could flip them for a profit?
I bid based on what I need. I'd see, like, let's say there's a rack of 5 shelves and there was one bin that had, say, a load of, I don't know if you've seen those old Hewlett-Packard alphanumeric LED displays, and this bin was full of those things, and I knew those were like, I could probably get a tenner a piece from those on eBay. So, as long as there's one thing in that rack, or either something that was useful or
that was worth
sell,
it,
it was worth it. At least putting a nominal bid in, if nothing else.
Of course.
So, I got this stuff. So I went up there. I borrowed a transit van. This was like a long wheelbase, high roof transit. The sort that you can actually stand up in the back of. And sort of went up there, got up there sort of as early as I could because I knew there'd be lots of other sort of people running around clearing their stuff, and stuff quite often goes missing in those scenarios. And I got there, and one of the things I bid on, it was a laptop was part of it. It was something like a device programmer with a laptop, and by the time I got there, the laptop had disappeared. So I had a word with the auctioneer, and he was like really embarrassed. Oh, sorry about this. And I said, well, there's that pile over there that's not been lotted. Do you want to swap it? Yeah, take that instead. And so there was me and a few other. Unfortunately, I didn't have anyone to help me out on this. I was on my own. I'd previously bought a big box full of those fold together cardboard boxes, flat pack cardboard boxes. So I had maybe about 100 of those, and literally I was going unfold these boxes, unload these shelves into the boxes, close the box into the van, next box. So literally it was a whole day of literally loading stuff into boxes. And this van, high top, long wheelbase Transit, was full. You could hardly get another resistor into it. I did leave. There was some, all the lots were like the shelving and the stuff on it, and I just had to leave some of the shelving. I just didn't have to. And at the end of the day, I was actually the auctioneer wanted to go home, so basically I ended up outside unbolting some of these shelving, the bits of shelving I could get into the van outside.
And I can picture you driving home with a huge smile on your face with a van full of loot, right?
A van that's almost scraping along the ground, and then I assembled a lot of the shelving in the garage, and it took about. It must have taken at least 6 months where I had all this shelving in the garage. I had to sort it all out, figure out, and then eBay it out. And the amount of stuff that was going through eBay was ridiculous. It probably must have been about 2,000 lots altogether over maybe a year.
Wow.
And obviously I end up with lifetime supply of like pin headers. I've got this enormous like filing box crammed full of every pin header you can imagine. And the odd thing about eBay is really surprising. The things that really sold well is really bizarre. I mean, things like little, those little test points you can get on PCBs, like a little plastic ring and a loop of wire.
And a hook on, like a ring on top.
I was selling bags of those were going for like 10 quid a piece for a bag of 100.
Wow, okay.
What on earth? And somebody that went really well, heat sink pads, sheets of like A4 size sheets of heat sink pads. And they were just flying out the door. It was really, really weird. But no, most of it did get flogged. I'd probably made about 5 or 6 grand out of the lot and ended up with lifetime supply of various bits. But that was a quite fun experience. But with almost all of those sort of sales tend to be on eBay these days, or at least online. And this was a very much old school. Write it down on a form and stick it in the post tender form type thing. No internet at all. eBay was still going strong, but a lot of the traditional business auctioneers hadn't really cottoned onto it.
Right.
So that was fun. I did another one actually quite a few years before. It was quite a big distributor, and I got loads and loads of leads. This must have been at least 25 years ago. And again, that was literally, I came back with a cart absolutely full of leads. And a lot of them were just bags of like, sort of, just like, red leads. This was before the days of blue and white. These were, but all sorts of weird shapes and sizes. But the real score on that, there were a load of electroluminescent matrix displays in there.
Nice. They would get a premium.
Well, they're the sort of thing that was so specialist. Bear in mind, this was well before eBay. This was like almost before the internet.
Right.
So I had a load of these displays. They were quite. I had all the data sheets. They were quite an interesting yellow colour. I actually put one in the top of a BBC Micro to make a portable BBC Micro. But that was purely by luck. I just phoned up another distributor for the same manufacturer and said, "Look, I've got all this stuff. I'll just send you a stock list." And it just so happened that they had a customer that was buying this particular display. So I shifted all of those for like twice what I paid for the entire lot of everything else. And what I did with the leads, it was this was really very much before eBay, and me and a friend took a stand in a radio rally or Hamfest, and what we did is literally we filled the car full of all these leads, laid them all out in boxes, and we just gave people a cup and say, okay, for £1 you can fill this cup with leads.
Yeah, with leads. Excellent.
And I've still got a few of them. Most of them I think are gone by now, but I've still got a few bags of like weird triangular leads and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, it's quite
brilliant.
and again, that was another one where I pulled a load of stuff out of their skip, for free, because I just want to get shot of it. So I haven't really seen many sales like that for a while. I'm still on a few mailing lists for auctioneers, but I think so much stuff goes on eBay these days. It's
exactly. No, it's hard. Anyway, we got sidetracked there grossly. You were talking about the lead project with 1,000 leads.
This one came back in a really unusual way, actually. As I said, I was on Mouser, noticed these 0402 leads. I thought, that's fun. It'd be fun to make a nice little dense array of those. Let's say, I don't know, maybe 32 by 30. So I bought 1,500 of these things, and they weren't that expensive. This was from a new company to the lead business. It's a name that some of our older listeners may remember, Plessy. Who used to be very into industrial military stuff, and basically they are now...
Technically, I used to work for GEC Plessy, so I
actually worked for a part of Plessy when I was at school as a sort of holiday thing. They had a big sort of factory up the road where they made like military radios and that sort of thing. Basically, they've it's one of these companies that's changed hands a gazillion times and split and merged.
Yeah, I know. It's split up dozens and dozens of ways.
Their main business was semiconductor foundry and custom chips, which is why no one had really heard much about them. But they developed this process for doing gallium nitride on silicon, which basically means they can make blue LEDs cheaper than everyone else. Or they've really reduced the cost of. Okay. So they've got a few products out now, including these 0402s, and they're targeting them. They're trying to target them at like the wearables market. So what happened was I bought a bunch of these LEDs. I was going to make up a little matrix board, which was 1.27 millimeter pitch. So it's a little thing about 40 mil square, 32 by 32, and obviously I've got. I did all my control magic to do nice graphics and stuff on it. So my intention was I was going to build this, probably show it to a few of my clients. Some of them would actually wet themselves when they see it with excitement.
Right.
That client I've actually
okay, so you're proactively developing projects you think that these art people might like.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Loads of projects have come out. Like, here's a cool thing, let's make something, show them, they pitch it to the client. But what actually happened, so the intention was to do that, and also just to bung an email, I'll probably stick it to a YouTube video, and just bung an email to the UK office of the company, the lead manufacturer. But actually what happened is it actually sort of preempted that about a week after I ordered them. So I ordered them, and they were sat on the shelf, and I didn't have time to do anything with them, or I was waiting for the boards to come back or something. And I got an email from them and say, "We noticed you ordered these LEDs from Mouser. What are you doing with them?" Which I actually was a little bit surprised that Mouser.
How did they know that?
It must have come from Mouser, I'm sure. Yeah, it must have done. Which
but Mouser are giving your details to the manufacturer.
Yes.
Of who bought what?
That's
a bit dodgy.
Yeah, I think yes and no. I'm in two minds about it. It was their product that,
Yeah, but that's got to be a breach of confidentiality.
I think it's a tricky one because it's their product you're buying. So, it's not like they don't know that their product's being bought. So, I put that aside. Maybe not. But it was a new product. So, obviously, I doubt that would happen on a routine product. But this is a product that had just gone into the catalogue. So, they were probably quite interested to find it. And also, they're new into the market. So, market research, whatever. So, whatever. But so what happened is they contacted me saying, what are you doing with these LEDs? We're really interested. I think they may well have seen my website as well.
Okay, I was going to say they knew who you were. Perhaps
I don't recall the exact sequence of events. So I said, I'm going to do this thing, this LED board just for the hell of it, But the original idea was to contact them after I'd done it, say, here, do you want me to do some of these as samplers or demos for you, sort of thing. But it happened sort of the other way around. And I said, well, look, I'm making this thing. I'll do it. I'll send you one to have a look at and then decide. So I did actually make a few of these little units they're using as demonstrators, they're little about 50 mil square by like about 12 mil thick. Little acrylic case. Again, that was where the CNC machine came out really nicely. 32 by 32 white display, playing video off an SD card, lithium battery in there. They're quite nice, cute little units. I did a few for them, and
so these are full color displays.
No, just white.
Just white. Okay, right.
Because the nice thing about white is it's so much more efficient in terms of power draw. The amount of light you get for the amount of power you put in for a white mono is like a factor of umpteen compared to RGB, but also if you actually want white, RGB is rubbish anyway because the colour mixing is always bad.
Oh yeah, no, it's awful. Yeah.
But no, a lot of the stuff I've done recently has been white. So I've done a few of these demo units. They've wanted a few more for their distributors. Yep. They're actually exhibiting. There's a UK show called Lux Live next week in London, which is a lighting exhibition. But there's also quite a lot of lighting components in there that they'll be using those, probably showing them there. But there's also there are a few in electronica as well. So if you're wandering around electronica and you see this nice little square, it might be on Mouser. I'm not sure which other distributors are out there, but maybe on Mouser you might actually see some of these things. So that worked out quite well. I'd turn them around really quickly, so I'd charge them. Obviously, as a company, they're not used to stuff being turned around really quickly because they're like a big industry company, so they were quite impressed with how quickly I turned these things around. And unfortunately, I had to get the PCBs from Eurocircuits because they're quite fine. They're like a 0.125 millimeter track and space and a 0.15 millimeter drill.
House.
Just so I could. So, it's beyond the capability of my go up the road as well. So.
Okay, right.
I think it was a 0.15 millimeter drill, so they were quite small and quite dense.
That is tiny. Is. Yep. Yeah, usually like 0.3 millimeters. Like a small house.
0.3 is about the normal limit. Not quite laser drill, and again, there's a trade-off between the via ring size and the drill size. And the Euro circuits are quite good, but they're really fussy. They've got this super automated process. But if one track is like 0.001 of a millimetre too wide, they'll bounce it back at you, and you've got to redo it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hate it.
Okay, so you've got to be very strict with your DRC.
Yeah, and this one, this was literally pushing the limits of
the boundary of their capability.
Basically their finest design rules, and I was pushing it to the one. The annoying thing is they give you a spec for the annular ring, but they add a 0.1 millimetre tolerance on the hole size as well. So if you're down on small hole sizes, I mean, if you look at the artwork, these look like ridiculously big vias, but it's purely because they're 0.1 mil hole size tolerance on a. I think I started off with a 0.25 mil hole. I say, okay, fine, just shrink the hole size down, and you get your annular ring. So, but also I'm now doing another job for them, which is basically they wanted a bigger demo unit for their larger LEDs, and what they originally wanted was a big rectangular display. So I said, don't be stupid. If it's a rectangular display, it might as well be a monitor. Let's do a round one. And especially as their logo is round as well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they can actually do their logo quite nice. So I've done this. It's a 500 mil diameter, done in like 4 quadrants, with white. It's basically a white and if you imagine like it's a 32 by 32 grid of white LEDs, clipped into a circle, but with then another array of blue offset by half a pixel. So it's. It actually looks really nice, but sort of being round, it looks quite unusual. There's a really thin board around the edge, and it was done as 4 quadrants to keep the board size sensible. So it's like a 250 mil square board, so I could run it on my pick and place.
Oh, I was going to say, how did you fit a 500 mil board in the pick and place?
In 4 pieces. But also, obviously being in 4 quadrants, if it was a simple matrix, I could probably have done a single board layout and then rotated it 4 times.
I was going to say, were you able to use the same one and then physically rotate it?
The LEDs are slightly asymmetrical, but because each pixel is basically, you've got like a white and a blue next to each other, I had to do 2 versions.
Oh, okay. So you're doing white and blue combo.
The top right and the bottom left are the same PCB, but they're populated with the blue and the white LEDs the opposite way round. So that matches up. And the top left and bottom right are a mirror. Now, I thought, well, obviously, all the LED layout, I can just flip the board out and get the mirror, but obviously all the drivers are on the back. So I thought, well, I really can't be bothered to redo the layout. I'll just mount all the drivers upside down because I was only making four of these boards. So I thought, it's way easier than relaying out. Say each of these quadrants had 1,500 LEDs on it, and 13 drivers and some row drivers and a few other bits and pieces. So about the only things I actually had to rotate and redo the layout for were some MOSFETs and the connector. All the other SOICs were just mounted upside down.
Nice.
Which just saved a lot of time on board layouts.
Just flip them. And flip the chips, physically flip them.
Plus, I'd spent a lot of time because I'd already done one iteration of that board and decided halfway through this was the wrong approach and had to rip it up and start again. And these were like 4-layer boards, like three signal layers of the ground plane. But that eventually worked out quite nicely. Then the fun was all the software mapping, because obviously with a circle, you start off with basically a rectangular grid and like a block of drivers, so each driver was running 8 by 16 LEDs on the other side of the board. But obviously once you start cutting the corners off, if you've got a small corner cut off, then fine. But if you've got a big corner cut off, you can't get a driver there, so you have to start stealing the cut off drivers from the other bits of the curve. So
so it's all muddled up.
Yeah, it's muddled up at the corner. Yeah, a lot of the blocks are the same, but everything on the curve, there are some LEDs that come from different rows or different drivers and so on. So
nasty.
It took about a day to sort out the software mapping of that thing.
But
the nice thing was, once I'd done it for one quadrant, the mapping for the other quadrants was just a mirror and a flip. So that
exactly
didn't take
easy.
Long, but I'd had a bit of tracing paper over the display, literally lighting one LED at a time and making it up where it was,
and then making a mark where it was. Okay. But, very nice.
So again, if you're going to the other thing they're doing on that, I've got a camera, and probably my next video is connecting a little cheap camera module up to a PIC 32 using some sneaky tricks with DMA. So this has actually got a phone camera module, and there's actually just enough space to put it in the middle, where the 4 boards meet. There's enough of a gap.
Oh, okay, you can put a hole in the middle. So it's like this circular LED mirror, which is quite a nice effect. But so if you go into Lux Live, I'm sure you'll see that. I'm just about to ship all that to them tomorrow. So. Hopefully, very nice, and so, but it's only a white and blue display.
because they only make white and blue LEDs.
Right. Okay. Yep. So what does like an image look like in white, in a combination of white and blue?
I don't think there's much intention of mixing it. I think it's one, for example, on the camera mode. Having the blue is just like a soft background, which actually looks quite nice. I mean, combining white and blue in an image doesn't make a great deal of sense unless it's like a graphic logo. So I think the idea is that it'll crossfade. Right. You do an image in white, and then you crossfade that to the same image in blue.
Right.
And for the camera image, white's the only one. Obviously, the white's a lot brighter than the blue anyway.
Got it.
So the camera image, it doesn't make sense to do the blue. So I've just given them the facility they can load a background image in, so they can put some like, and maybe have their logo as a blue watermark, and then have the white camera image. Displaying, but no, it should look a bit unusual. Certainly, hopefully, it's going to grab some attention.
So each LED is individually PWM controlled as well.
Yeah. Basically, it's a 16-channel PWM driver and then an 8-to-1 multiplex. So you've got 12-bit control. So you can get one issue with monochrome LEDs is that you need to get a nice grayscale. You basically need to apply gamma correction, so you need a minimum of 12-bit control. But what you can do is you can start from 8-bit data and then feed that through the correction table, so you can have your 8-bit linear scale looks like a nice white grayscale, but in fact it's pre-gamma corrected. So I know squaring is a good first approximation, but sometimes you can use a lookup table. But particularly if you want a nice sort of, particularly now, if you do it linearly, you find like the first 32 codes sort of go from white, off to almost white, and then the top 75% of the range, you just don't see any difference because it's there's another issue in that if you're looking at LEDs rather than LEDs through a diffuser, because you're looking at small points, the eye tends to saturate, so the perception of grayscale is actually quite distorted. Even if you take a display and put a diffuser on it, things like colour temperature become a lot more noticeable. So you can look at a bunch of LEDs and they all look, they're white dots, but you put a diffuser over it, you then start seeing all the differences in colour temperature because the eye's no longer saturating on those little points.
Got it.
It's one of those slightly non-intuitive things that you don't find until you actually see. The other issue, going back to what I was saying about doing prototypes and so on, is that if you've got a board with this thing got 6,000 LEDs in it, you really don't know how much current you're going to need to put in that to get the right brightness because you've got so many LEDs. If you run it full blast, it looks like the Death Star, which is no bad thing.
Of course.
Things like if you've got a LED board that's got a DC-DC converter on it, you need to know how. If in theory these LEDs run at full blast could pull 20 amps, chances are you're not going to need that. So it probably isn't worth spending the time or money to put a 20 amp DC-DC converter on there.
Exactly. So what power supply did you end up using?
No, again, I don't really know how this is going to be run in an exhibition. So I tend to design most of my stuff so it can run at full brightness if necessary, but it almost never doesn't. So I mean, if you turn all the LEDs on this board, it pulls about 40 amps at 5 volts.
Oh, okay, geez.
And it doesn't actually get particularly warm because it's spread out. It's a 500 millimeter diameter, so it's spread over quite a large area. But I find with most sort of graphic content, it's you're lucky if you get to 25%, but also because of the gamma correction, in that a quarter of the power looks half as bright. So unless you're doing really solid graphic content, anything that's vaguely photographic or smooth or textured, the power consumption just shoots way down. So what I quite often do is, if there is, let's say for example, there is a DC-DC limit, I'll put some code in the driver that sums up the total power, and if that's going to be too much, it scales the whole thing back automatically. So you can't physically overload it, and it will scale back gracefully to the point that almost no one is ever going to even notice it. But it means you're not going to get things tripping out or doing anything crazy.
Terrific. And the reason you're able to do all this stuff so quickly is because you've done it countless times before.
I know what all the problems are. I know which drivers are. I've got one of my sort of go-to drivers is made by a Taiwanese company called Macroblock, they're similar to some of the TI 16-bit drivers, but they're a lot cheaper, and there's a few very subtle ways in which they're better. So I buy those by the reel of 2,000 at a time. So again, you can't get those in less than 3 weeks lead time. But I know I've almost always got like 2,000 on the shelf. So
got it. Yeah. So you can turn any project. Yeah. Easily.
And obviously I've already got all the code to drive. Yeah, they're a bit fiddly to drive, so I've got code on the PIC and the AVR and whatever to drive them. So a lot of the time but also as well as let's say doing a display board, it's the other stuff. It's like the test software to send the data to it, so you can, for example, work out all your pixel mapping and so on. So again, I've used standard. I tend to use like RS485 or TTL serial, like up to 6 mega board to drive these things. But it means I've already got this stuff that I've hacked up in Visual Basic years ago that can take an AVI file and spit it out to this matrix, having done all the address mapping and everything. So in terms of demonstrating, getting stuff up and running, and I've now got stuff for doing all the SD card playback and loading a mapping file. Now what I can now do is I can actually give someone a player that will play off an SD card, and they can generate their own mapping file. So it reads a mapping file off the SD card that figures out. It takes your rectangular AVI file, and you say, okay, this pixel is displayed at this node on this bus on the actual whatever the output format is. And I've used that in countless installations.
And this is why you're probably very smart to stick with a niche field like this and only accept jobs in that field, because you can then be more impressive that they can turn. You've done most of it, and you can impress clients, turn it over, and it's low risk as well.
Exactly, it's something I know I can do. I know what the issues are, and if the client says, I can give the client a reality check in terms of things like power and brightness and whatever. And there's some subtle issues that I'm actually surprised that some of my clients are supposedly qualified lighting designers, but they do. Probably the best one was this was actually a slightly client that's maybe not quite as familiar with it, but they did this basically it was a meeting table made out of corian. Do you know what corian is? It's like
what's that?
It's basically it's a blend of acrylic and silica. It's used for things like kitchen worktops. It's a really nice, it's a very nice high quality. It's like a bit like a marble sort of feel, so it's quite expensive. But it's if you machine it down, it's quite translucent. So if you put lighting behind it, you get some really interesting effects. So basically, they made this big corporate meeting table out of corian, and it must have cost them well into 4 figures just for the piece of material.
Wow.
And what they did is they machined the back out of it to make like a bar graph out of LED strip. The idea was this thing was called a timetable, so the idea was to keep meetings trudging along.
Oh no!
At the start of the meeting, you press a button, and this bar graph appears on the table and counts down over like 30 minutes or whatever, and then sets an alarm off when the meeting's finished. Which it's a quite nice concept. They had like some quite cool speech effects, and there was a special button you can press. It had the speech say it would say like 5 minutes, 10 minutes of speech.
Got it.
And there was this secret button you could press, which put it into disco mode, where it played Saturday Night Fever and all the lights started flashing.
Right.
But basically, they were machining this out in the factory where they did all the corian machining, and they showed the client, and they had some LED strips. They said, that looks fine. In this factory environment, they said, it looks brilliant, great. Come to installing it goes in a corner office with windows on 2 sides. And guess what? It isn't bright enough.
Yep.
Because the various people didn't realise that the actual difference in light level between indoor and natural lighting.
Huge. It's
because
massive.
The eye is so good at compensating. If you didn't know and didn't use a light meter, you wouldn't know that it's like an order of magnitude, or several orders of magnitude.
This is why people don't realise when you shoot in video, and there's a vast difference between shooting video indoors and outdoors. Vast difference in the performance of the camera in terms of noise level. Vast difference.
So at the last minute, we doubled up on the LED strips, and they sort of grudgingly accepted it. But certain people ought to have known better about things like that.
Yep. Traps. Yep. Oh, goodness. Shall we talk about briefly something that's on the list here?
What's that?
Which I find personally interesting. Apparently, there's some capacitor price fixing going on. And I'll link this in, but apparently all the major manufacturers, I'm talking Panasonic, Sanyo, Teo Yuden, NEC, Kemet, Nippon Chemicon, right, AVX, Rubicon, Vishay, right, Rode,
everyone basically.
Everyone has apparently colluded. I don't know how long this has been going on, but they've colluded to price fix the market on capacitors.
I can only imagine that applies to the more expensive, because things like your box standard electrolytics are so cheap. I just wonder, but when you start looking at stuff like the aluminium polymer and tantalums, which are a lot more expensive.
Those really low ESR, top quality, top brand ones.
And the performance of those, they've got like millions of ESR. They're just incredible capacitors, but they're like
but they can cost $5-10 each.
In fact, I actually use some of these on this this big round lead board. By default, I tend to use ceramics, but the problem is if you've got PWM and ceramics, the things buzz. You actually
they sing. Yes,
and I was actually getting quite loud sing, so I yanked the ceramics off and just stuck some like 100 off polymer caps on there, and they just killed it stone dead. It just worked beautifully. But in terms of pricing, I can't imagine it's worth price fixing a 5p electrolytic. Or maybe they do, I don't know.
No, it's not. It's got to be the high end stuff.
I'd imagine it's the more expensive. So, I can't understand why polymer caps are that much more expensive. But I've not heard about that.
Yeah, no, I hadn't heard either. But so thank you for whoever put this on Reddit. And basically, a company called ChipTech Limited is the complainant, and they've and a class of similarly. Oh, right, no, they sort of started it, but then there's it's a class lawsuit or whatever. However, so they've got lots of all these purchasing these components. They're all started this lawsuit against all these companies for price fixing, and apparently one of them has admitted it. It rumoured to be Panasonic, according to this law firm article from this law firm. Panasonic have come out and admitted that they've done this, but they want amnesty from prosecution from the US and
we'll
Chinese authorities. We'll dob the other ones in. Thank you very much.
Well, there's got to be at least two of them doing it if they're price fixing, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And they're going to dob them in and admit to it, and it's probably that open and shut case. So that's really fascinating. There you go.
If you're wondering why what the actual damages, the amounts involved are, though.
Oh yeah, I have no idea, but that's illegal that's under federal law, actual price fixing. So you can get
some flash manufacturers or memory manufacturers get done for that not too long ago.
Yes.
I remember.
Yeah, I'm sure. But in capacitors, who would have thought, right? It's such an innocent sort of industry.
That's what they figured. No one notices capacitors. Let's.
But these are buyers, all buyers. They're really every last cent, and they're going, geez, these prices are, and they would see patterns, right? All of these buyers would see patterns. I'm getting them from 5 different manufacturers, and they're suspiciously all just gone up in price recently, and they probably put 2 and 2 together and realise that this is going on, but it takes balls for, somebody to actually start a lawsuit against that. So, but apparently,
that's no idea. All the sort of mechanics. I'm sure the lawyers are the ones that will make the most money out of it.
Oh, and of course, they always do. But anyway, that's a fascinating tidbit from the industry. So there you go. I like that.
I'm surprised I've not seen anything in the press. I still get some of the paper press. So I suppose I haven't noticed anything about that. But I'm sure it will probably all start hitting the fan at some point. Yep. I do sometimes wonder on things like the lower end passes how people can make money making resistors and stuff. They can't.
It's got to be a lost lead in business.
How can it be? There's some companies that do little else, so they must be making money out of it. But sometimes you go around a trade show and you see this poor little guy on this resistor stand. You feel sorry for him. And how can you get excited about selling and making resistors?
Like a company like Rome's a bad example because they make chips as well. They do also. Well, who's like only manufactures?
Jaeger do anything? I think most of them do. I think they do other like ceramic-y stuff, stuff that uses similar tech. But even so, but it's one of those odd things.
They probably make their money on like the precision, the really high-end precision ones that cost $10-20 a pop.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. Everybody needs. We couldn't live without them, but they're so cheap. There must be just so much competition that you can buy. It's literally when I'm doing a production order. If I need more than I think, it's usually about around the 700 or 800 mark. It's cheaper to buy a reel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. It's well, what does a reel of resistors cost? You can get them for like $5, can't you?
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah, yeah.
Like for a reel of like 5,000 resistors.
Yeah, and that's 1% as well.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
I don't know why they even bother making like 5% resistors.
Yeah, I know. It's just, I know. It's a mad. The market's just, crazy. Yeah. I don't know how they can do it. And
I'd love to see the factory
as well. Aren't that much?
I'd love to see the factory and see the machines.
I'd love to do a tour
they're just
as well.
Spitting out machine gunning, capacitors. Yep. It must be millions a day. The production.
It's got to be. It's got to be. Oh, I know. It'd be fantastic. But yeah. Anyway, if we ever get a chance, yes, we must shoot some video at a resistor or capacitor manufacturer. Absolutely. Yeah. Boy, all right. Well, our amp hour's well and truly up.
That's great,
Mike. I'd love to.
Where did that go?
Maybe. Well, we can always come back.
Yeah,
we can always come back. You're welcome back anytime either of us aren't here. But it's a time zone difference because it's 11 p.m. over there or something.
Night. Yeah, but that's fairly normal working hours for me. So it's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. You're just getting started for the day, right?
Yeah.
How many hours a day sleep would you get?
I don't know, about 7 or 8, something like that.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, because of course I don't have to get up early for anything, so I quite often just get up about 9, half 9 or whatever, having sort of.
But you've got the advantage of living and working in your lab, right? That's exactly.
Yeah, 30 seconds walk down the garden.
Well, down the garden, exactly. So, yep. Yes.
Got a few
the luxury.
We've got time for a few viewer questions. I put a thing on YouTube.
Oh
saying
yes. Viewer questions. Yeah, please.
About half of them were actually already answered in my previous appearance. So go and listen to that.
Well, let's do the ones you haven't answered.
No, just a quick. Go for it. When are you building your big boy power supply? We want flames. I think photonic induction's got that covered. So I've got no immediate plans on that one.
Right.
Just make those bastards talk about electronics for a change. We've done a bit of that.
I think we do that. Yeah, mostly 90% today.
Yeah, what else? We're going weirdest and most interesting. It's hard to say that. I mean, I discussed a few of those last time.
We talked about oddball projects, didn't we? Yeah.
Here's a good one. Have FLIR/Seek offered you a job yet?
Right, yes.
The answer isn't actually completely no. I actually had quite an interesting conversation with a guy at FLIR after the FLIR 1 teardown. And everyone at FLIR really enjoyed it, and they sort of say, "Oh yeah, he's got that guy. Maybe we should hire this guy," sort of thing. So it wasn't quite a job offer, but
right, it was rumblings of right. But you wouldn't take it anyway, would you?
Well, I don't need a job. Yeah, so
no, exactly.
I think it may have been semi-serious if I'd not said, "Well, I don't need a job," sort of thing. And interestingly, their response to the E4 business was congratulations, which I said, "Well, I'm not really expecting that, but I'll take it."
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm a bit surprised by that because they are very paranoid about their their security on that sort of stuff.
Well, not enough to have fixed it really quickly though.
No,
it took them a long time to fix
it. But they have fixed it. What's the latest update on that FLIR E4?
The current status is the latest fixed. The resolution has been hacked again, but not all the extra functionality. Is the current status.
Okay. Right.
In post number, it must be up to about 6,000 posts or whatever. I mean,
that's crazy.
I've had almost no involvement since the original thing. I mean, people much cleverer than me in terms of looking at encryption have done all the hard work on that. I just stuck.
Right.
I just lit the blue touch paper, and everything else went.
That's it.
A bit like when I tweeted the thread on the FTDI thing. I think everything has pretty much been said on that. That's going to be said. I don't really think there's any more to say.
FTDI thing. Yeah, that was. It was. Yeah, because it was your tweet that started the whole Twitter thing, and then I thought,
started it. I'm sure it would have happened anyway, but I think I was
probably
had some small part in the the backwards and forward tweets between me and FTDI that they then deleted. I think
yes, they then deleted. That's just ridiculous. That's a joke. Why would you?
I don't know if they've actually done anything, and they said they were going to do stuff. I don't know if they've actually changed the driver yet. I have to investigate
well,
that.
they announced they would. I don't know if it's
they
actually
pulled it
happened.
from the Microsoft update, but whether they've changed
yes, that's right.
I haven't really
looked.
I
think it's still a work in progress.
I think that one, on Hackaday, I think it was either 500 or 600 comments, which I don't think I've ever seen happen before on any subject.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Wow.
What's your favourite microcontroller FPGA at the moment and why? I've actually got a couple of quite good answers on that. FPGA Lattice Mac XO, because it's got on-chip flash, on-chip regulator, and on-chip oscillator. Reasonable range of sizes. They do a 32-pin QFN version, which unfortunately doesn't have any memory blocks or PLLs, and you have to go to 100-pin.
Right.
But they do these really nice little development boards, like 17 quid for a board that's basically got just what you need. It's got the FPGA, voltage regs, JTAG programmer, and all the pins broken out onto headers.
Yep.
Cheap, which is really, it's really nice.
And how is their software?
Pretty good. I mean, I've used Xilinx in the past, and the software was 3 gig download, most of which you can't actually use because it's for part libraries for parts that it doesn't even cover. And but the Lattice Diamond seems to be pretty reasonable. It will do compiling a minimal design in 10 seconds, which is quite reasonable. Every time I've looked at Altera, they haven't really had anything at the really cheap, low end. But the new Max 10s look quite interesting as and when they appear, because again, they're a bit of a copy. And I think they're trying to take some of the market from the Lattice XOs because they've got the onboard config memory and the onboard voltage regulators.
Yes,
and
that's
I think
right.
they've
That's
got fairly big
advantage.
parts in QFP as well. But again, no small pin count QFPs. Which,
they're hopeless on
really
that. But as long
that.
as they're in a QFP package.
My primary issue is 2-layer boards. That's why I want both packages.
Totally.
Because I want to do stuff on a 2-layer board because it's like a 400 mil long string of LCDs or something bizarre that I really can't go to 4 layers on.
Something that you could possibly hand solder if you need to, so you can just do a drag solder. My PCB guy up the road only does 2 layers, so that's another reason. Right. Yep. Exactly.
Microcontroller, I can actually give a very specific answer to this. Pick 32MX170F256B.
Awesome. Why?
A number of reasons. People keep arguing about architecture. The architecture just doesn't matter. It's almost all about the other stuff.
Yep.
What I like about it comes in DIP, SO, SSOP, and QFN, and they're all available easily. The latest one in particular, the most recent version of that family, there's a 130, 150, etc. that's been around for quite a long time. But recently they brought out the 170, which gives you 256K of flash and 64K of RAM, which is very unusual on a chip that small. And because I'm doing stuff with video, RAM is almost always the first thing I run out of.
RAM is the bottleneck, right? Yep. Yep.
But also I can buy them pre-programmed from Microchip for like another 30p. So when we did that project with the nano LCDs...
that's actually easy to do, just order them pre-programmed?
Yeah, literally you upload the file.
Actually, Mouser and DigiKey offer that service, don't they?
I suspect it's an awful lot more expensive though. Microchip, the small parts like the little SOT23s, it's about 2p to get that programmed and marked.
Oh, that's crazy. Why wouldn't you? Is there a minimum volume with that?
150.
Oh, is that all? Okay, right.
And it adds about 2 days to the order time, and it's about 2 days setup time. So the way it normally works is you send them a file, you then order a sample, they'll send you 5 devices, but you can actually bypass that if in your own hurry. So don't bother with the approval order. I trust you.
Yep.
And they'll put a paint dot or a mark, like a label on it. But for things like the iPod Nano thing we did with 2,800 QFN devices, even programming those on board would have been a pain in the arse. So to be able to get them, even if all that's in there is a bootloader, that's all you need because you can then
that's right.
bulk program them in production. But say other reasons I like PICs, dev tools are all the same from the 8-bit up to the 32-bit. I'm using the same environment. I'm using the same programmers for production. If I'm doing say a production job where the subcontractor is programming them, I can give them a 30 quid PIC 3 with the code preloaded. So literally they connect it, press a button, and get a green light, and it's in. And it's got it's quite nice. I've used it on quite a few jobs. I'm sure there probably are ARM Cortexes that do a similar thing. But familiarity. I think the answer is, what's your favourite processor? It's the one you know.
Exactly.
And it's got some nice stuff, like it's got DMA, it's got some reasonable peripherals.
Yeah.
The UART, a nice feature about the UART is that it will do baud rates up to a quarter of the clock rate, so you can do like 12 megabaud UART on it.
Yeah.
They slightly screwed up the FIFO implementation, but it's workaround. It's not a huge deal.
Right.
Basically, you've got this nice UART, FIFO UART, which you need if you're running at 12 megabaud. So you get an interrupt, and it'll. You pull 8 bytes out of the UART. The problem is what it hasn't got is a timeout interrupt, so that if you only get three bytes come in and then nothing else, you never get that interrupt until some more bytes come in. Which is firstly, it's for things like small, that's less of a problem. What is usually the problem is getting the last few bytes out of a big transfer. So you just have to set up a timer interrupt. So you just set up a timer interrupt a few microseconds after the last byte. Yep. If there's anything still in the FIFO, just call it. So it's get around and it's just irritating. But other than that, there's no particularly nasty errata on it, and it's I've used it in quite a lot, but also it's, as well as being the thing it's the thing that you've written all the bootloaders for, and it's the stuff that's a real fiddly thing to do, and half the battle on that is not so much figuring out how to actually do the code updating, it's how to fight the linker to get it to put your bits of code in the places you want it to get on, and that's...
so that's not necessarily a recommendation from you, use this chip, it's just the one that you know, and you're familiar and you've done all the work in. Yeah,
there are a lot of things that suit me really well. And there's no there's other chips that do different horses for courses, but that's been it's now tends to be my default choice unless there's a reason to use anything else. I've done a few odd things.
Does it have the peripheral pin swapping?
Sort of. It's not as good. And the PIC-24s were brilliant in that almost any peripheral could go to any pin.
It was great.
Here it's a subset. You've got each peripheral has a subset of pins. So you actually have to sit down really carefully and work it all out. Yeah, most of it you can make it work, but it's not as flexible.
Yep.
It's got so many. It's almost impossible to not have that on a micro these days, especially at 28 pins. You've got so many peripherals, you just don't have enough pins for all of them. But
no, that's right.
I've yet to fail to map something to all the pins, but in a couple of cases, it's actually been quite close and been quite. Especially as the way I like to work in. Throw all the footprints and what generally what happens is I end up with a picture, the pin of the data sheet, handwritten, I know, let's say I need 2 UARTs on an SPI and whatever, so I just write on each pin which pins I can use for those functions, and then cross out the ones that clash, and then work out with the few permutations that I've got left. So it's not as good as the PIC-24, but it's a lot better than some others I've used. So it's a neutral on that.
Yep. For those who don't know what we're talking about, the PIC-24 F-Series, they have this feature. It's almost like an FPGA pin mapping feature where you can just choose your UART, like you have your UART block, and then you can route it to almost any pin on the chip you like. It's not a fixed pin. So there are some limits to that, but basically,
but on the PIC-24, actually very few, almost any pin will go to almost any peripheral, and it's quite handy. Like for example, one of the ways I like to drive some of these LED drivers is that I have a PWM that I'm actually clocking from the SPI port, so you can do stuff like share a pin and do weird stuff. But also you can change it dynamically as well, which is can be. I've an example where I did that on the Heathrow Airport job. That I basically needed 4 SPI ports, but I didn't necessarily need them all at the same time. So I just did some pin juggling to sort of split the SPI out of 2 pins. For to feed one half of the arc, and then swap the SPI, remap the SPI to the other pins, and then split the packet to drive the other LED out the other one. So there is some scope for some further juggling and playing around with it. So it's quite a nice chip. But
have you had any problems with the microchip tools? A lot of people complain about the new versions of the tools.
Yeah, I've not even looked at MPLAB X. I've tweaked the linker and MPLAB config files to deal with the extra RAM, but I've not even started. MPLAB 8 point whatever, it works. Ain't broke, don't fix it.
Okay, so you haven't changed. You haven't moved on.
No.
Right, you haven't moved on from that. Because that's like, 4 years old or something?
Yeah, probably. Something like that. But it does the job.
Yeah, so, right. So you're still using that, And what C compiler?
The microchip one.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which, I mean, I've actually bought the upgrade for the paid for one because I'm just on the later ones though. The early ones, it's so trivial to hack that it's obvious they didn't really care about it. The later ones are slightly better protected, but because I'm a Microsoft registered consultant, I get like ridiculous discounts on DevTools. I can't remember what it is, but it's a very significant discount on the DevTools. So
nice. Any more viewer questions, quickly?
Has Dave ever admitted to being wrong?
I always admit to being wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm one of the few people who do it. I mean, a lot of other people out there will not admit that they're wrong. I do it all the time. Geez, I've done it maybe hundreds of times since I started the video blog. It doesn't sound like it, but
if you had 6 months of completely free time and £50,000 available, what would you do or make? I have no idea.
Me either. Geez, that's a tough question. Yeah.
I think so. I can't find it. Someone said there's some issue about what are the limitations, but almost all my primary limitations in terms of gear and so on is space.
Right. Have you thought about moving to a bigger space or what?
Not really. It's just it would be such a traumatic thing. It's the space I've got is adequate. Anything that isn't used a lot either gets moved out. For example, when I got the pick and place, the PCB tank's got moved out into the conservatory because I don't use it very much, but I still use it occasionally. So generally the worst is it's like in the last few days of a really major job, the place is just bedlam. There's stuff everywhere. I'm quite good at clearing, fairly ruthlessly clearing out and retrieving space. So.
Have you thought about renting or buying, like a big warehouse space?
No, not
nearby?
really. So again, it's quite a lot of cost, business rates, all that sort of stuff, and this place is big enough, and it's 30 seconds walk down the road, and
Got it.
Storage. Storage. I've got most of the house for storage. My whole back room is full of shelves, and that's just offline storage. So here's a good one. Yep. How big is the pick and place machine that did the 1.2 meter PCBs? Well, a bit bigger than 1.2 meters. There's a company up the road. They do a lot of lead stuff, and they can actually do boards up to 1.6 meters. And
that's in length, right? It's not like you can put a 1.6 meter wide board.
No, that would be good.
People have to understand that.
It's only about 400 wide. Basically, the way it's designed, it's like if you think of a standard pick and place, make it wider, but it's got two heads in it so that they can run it as almost two independent machines for smaller boards, and then they can put one big long board, and then both the heads are placing onto this single board. So that works quite nice. They're quite expensive for small size boards, so I tend to only use them for the really big ones. But it's quite handy to have that capability.
Got it.
That again, we used that on the Heathrow Airport job. I think they were 1 meter boards actually. But we stuck to them together, so the whole light fixture was like 2 meters long.
Right.
But,
any more questions?
I think that's about it for the sensible questions. So the ones that haven't already been answered, or I'll ignore the one about UFOs.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Let's not go there. Jeez. All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike, for coming on and filling in for Chris, who's in electronica at the moment. Excellent. Well, you're certainly invited back anytime. You might be able to be go-to guy.
I'm sure I've got at least another show's worth of stories from my past.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Well, we'll have to get you back on. I'm not sure if Chris is back next week. I'm not sure I think he may not be. Anyway. I'll figure it out. So, all right. Thanks, mate. It's been awesome.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks, mate. See ya.